Welcome back. Lawyers who form part of the KwaZulu-Natal Personal Injury Association have criticised a draft amendment bill to the Road Accident Fund. The association says that the bill poses a threat to the rights and well-being of accident victims across the country. They say that the proposed amendments seek to remove a claim for general damages for those victims who have suffered severe and debilitating injuries, only to cause more pain and suffering. Let's talk more on this now. We are joined by Dave Campbell, a co-chair of the KwaZulu-Natal's Personal Injury Association. A very good evening to you, sir, and thanks so very much for joining us here on SABC News.
Good evening, and thanks very much for having me, and good evening to the viewers.
You're most welcome. The Road Accident Fund has been criticised over the years for failing to execute its mandate. One would have thought that any amendment would be a step in the right direction, but you're not in agreement with that?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I think the important thing to remember is the history and the purpose of the Road Accident Fund. Which was that in the past you would have to buy compulsory third-party insurance, and you would then have a claim against those individual insurance companies. And then in the mid-90s, the state changed that, deciding that instead of you purchasing private insurance, a road accident fund would be formed, and they would effectively levy an insurance premium, although it wasn't called that, a fuel levy. And that would go to the fund, who would then step into the shoes of the wrongdoing driver, indemnify them, and would pay out the innocent victim.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you can carry on, but what I wanted to ask, because the draft was sort of sold to the public as a total restructure of the Road Accident Fund for the good of the people. So let's talk about what the negativity or the problems are. But I don't want it to be too long drawn on this one answer. Yeah.
Well, certainly, the proposal is to remove your claim for general damages completely. General damages being a lump sum figure which is based on pain, suffering, loss of amenities of life, disfigurement, shortened life expectancy, etc. And the intention now is that no matter how horrendously your injuries are, you would receive R0 for general damages. Then the other aspect of damages is what we refer to as special damages, things like past and future medical expenses, past and future loss of earnings or earning potential. And they also intend to remove that in its entirety and replace it with what they call a social benefit. Now, they haven't defined what that social benefit would be, or how much it would be, or how it would be calculated. That they say that will be done in future at the minister's discretion by publishing it in a regulation. So effectively, you're removing all of your rights.
Yeah.
They're also removing your right to receive medical expenses, where in the past you could be reimbursed on reasonable medical expenses incurred, and now that's going to be removed, and you can only be reimbursed at a tariff which they will determine at a future date.
Yeah.
So yet at the same time, the Act takes away your right to sue the wrongdoing driver in exchange for the benefits that you get for the Road Accident Fund, and step into the wrongdoing driver's shoes. The proposed amendment now removes all of your rights, but it still prohibits you from suing the wrongdoing driver, meaning that you are effectively left with no recourse at all.
Yeah.
In a lot of instances, and those who do get your social benefit, that is all you would be entitled to.
Yeah. Do you see this as some sort of a sneaky way of capping what people, those that are injured get? Do you think that's sort of the end goal at the end of the day, or am I reading this incorrectly?
Well, remembering that they have already introduced caps in 2008, restricting general damages to those injuries which we regard as serious, and also capping the loss of earnings to basically limit the claims of higher income earners. What this amendment does is effectively remove virtually all benefits. As an example, if you were a pedestrian crossing a highway, and despite the fact that the vehicle collided into you was grossly negligent, you would not be entitled to receive any benefit whatsoever because you are a pedestrian on a highway.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that the majority of our people don't have the choice of walking along or crossing highways because they have no alternatives. But now if they're involved in an accident, that's not their fault, they would receive nothing from the road accident fund. They would receive no medical benefit. They would receive no social benefit either. And they're precluded from suing the wrongdoer, even if it was a large corporate which had more than sufficient funds to pay them, they'd be excluded in terms of that claiming.
Yeah. What they also then tried to do, I see, in this proposal was to talk about, replacing compensation. And I know you touched on it briefly there, compensation with structured benefits. It seems to be a euphemism for something. What exactly is supposed to be understood by structured benefits?
Well, that's one of my many concerns with this bill, in that we don't know. There's no definition of how they were calculated. They refer to it being an annuity, but to be decided at a future by the minister, and that you would then have to reapply or be reassessed on an annual basis for them to decide if you're going to continue to receive this benefit.
Clearly, from the picture that you're painting, there could be devastating consequences then for victims. The Department of Transport has indeed called for public comment. I assume, having issues with this proposal, that you would have contributed. Are you calling on government to reconsider those changes, and if so, what sort of changes would you like to see? I mean, I did say earlier that the Road Accident Fund, the beginning, was never perfect to begin with, and that it was failing in many instances to execute its mandate. So surely there are some changes that are needed, and what would you suppose those would be?
Well, frankly, the RAF collects in the region of 45 billion rand a year from the fuel levy.
Yeah.
And this bill seems to indicate that they intend to continue to collect that 45 billion, but not pay out benefits, or not pay out the vast majority of the benefits to the victims. The changes that need to occur are with the administration of the Road Accident Fund itself, which is an absolute chaos.
Yeah.
There are huge wastage of costs by matters not being settled, by reasonable offers not being made timeously. There's various protections in the Act that allows the fund, by making a reasonable offer, to put the risk of an adverse cost order onto the plaintiff or the attorney should they continue to fight the matter, and it turns out the court awards them less than they were offered, and they will be liable to pay the Road Accident Fund's cost from that time forward. But the Road Accident Fund is not using that to their advantage.
Yeah.
They drag matters out indefinitely and waste legal costs and medical experts' costs, and only settle matters on the day of trial.
Yeah, it's interesting, of course, that it's quite a few lawyers who are taking exception to the proposed amendments, and some might say, well, of course they would, because they would benefit in some way from assisting some of the victims, and I think there've even been more nasty terms thrown at these lawyers, being called ambulance chasers, for example. What would you say to that?
Well, we obviously will be at the forefront of raising these objections because we understand what is wrong with the system. The individual victim will only understand the frustration of dealing with the Road Accident Fund should they fall victim to a claim. We are unfortunately the ones who have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. And, if you're going to throw mud, it's a fairly easy target. Attorneys often seen as very sympathetic.
All right, Dave, thanks very much for talking to us. Dave Campbell is the co-chair of the KwaZulu-Natal Personal Injury Association.